I believe the visuals should have continued instead of we speaking. Stunning visuals, wonderful. And what Mr. Chengappa said in the morning, he has actually proved it, that Karnataka is really beautiful and stunning. There could be probably many more Keralas clubbed into Karnataka. Coming back to your visuals and the film, now that job has been done, everybody has appreciated. Do you see this getting translated into any visible action in terms of policy making or any initiative by the government, or the public awareness, or people's perception? Even if you have changed one or two individuals, that would be, I believe, a great achievement.
So Kaushik, I think the first point here is that all of us here, we are all products of watching something, either going into nature by ourselves or watching a film or something like that. If not for that, we wouldn't have loved, and all the researchers, the scientists and the forest officers. One of the best examples I would like to give you is a film called Gandhadagudi, which was made 50 years ago by Dr. Rajkumar, which from my knowledge is the first conservation film made in India. And watching it, so many of my mentors and forest department officers have joined the force. So I think all of us have to first love nature before we get into any actionable point. And I think the problem we face today is we have a population of 1.4 billion people. There's no way we can take 1.4 billion people into nature. So the best thing we can do is take nature to them. And I think that's part of what work we do. And if you look at human history, any great change has come from consciousness change. And consciousness change now, as you know, is all on screens. So I think we've been lucky enough to work with the forest department and of course our government. One of the small things is that because Hesarghatta is a beautiful grassland around our state, and because of continuous media attention, thanks to even media people like you, it's now been approved by the cabinet to be declared as a conservation area, thanks to our minister and the cabinet, which is a huge win. Because people don't even think that grasslands are, ecologically important. So I think awareness goes a long way.
Yeah, that's about the government initiative and all that. But how do you see the people's reaction to these things when people watch? These are niche audience. They are already appreciative of nature. Most people are. But when people see such things, they have it raises a kind of curiosity of going into nature and also protecting it. Do you see that kind of changes through your work? Means that is getting appreciated apart from the appreciation of those visuals, but someone getting motivated to do more or contribute to preserving nature?
So in fact, our last film, which I did with Dr. Puneet Rajkumar, late Dr. Puneet Rajkumar, that was watched by about 2.5 million people in theaters, which translated into so many different NGOs, schools and colleges taking up tree plantations, taking up plastic cleanup, and actually inviting me to say, hey, what can we do? So many of these different schools and organizations now have started environmental groups to say, what can we do? And I think we did a small math. So I basically, I couldn't say this here, but everywhere I go and give a talk, I have a small request. I said, if there are 1,000 people or 100 people, can we give 100 saplings? So by now, we must have reached at least 10 to 15,000 saplings just in the last 1.5 years. That is just me going. 15,000. Yeah, 10 to 15,000. And having said that, a lot of the films that we have made in collaboration with Forest Department have been used for making policy changes. Because a short film is so much more easier to convey at the government level, at the policy level. So a lot of the technology implementations that we've made films on have now got implemented across the country.
As you mentioned, Puneet Rajkumar, then you had the narration by David Attenborough. Also, I saw Ricky Tays collaborating with this. Now, I have seen, means your work always gets a celebrity endorsement, if I can say so. Is it a conscious decision to collaborate with a celebrity so that you get more attention, or it's your work that's bringing in these celebrities? And how do you see that translating into some tangible results?
See, I keep saying that when we make wildlife films, it's usually the British Council audience that watches it, right? And if you take the entire infotainment segment today, which is the Discovery, Nat Geos of the world, at best it reaches about 1% of India, right? In that 1%, the percentage which watches wildlife, you can guess. It'll be like a minuscule percent. So having a few thousand people watch, I don't think we can make any big change. I mean, I'm sure the government today, if all of us ask for better infrastructure, the government will say we will do better infrastructure. But if everyone in the country said we want more trees, if everyone said we want clean water, I mean, that will become the mandate of the government, right? So a commercial film, on an average, reaches crores of people. You would see the box office numbers. So if we have to put wildlife conservation on the center stage, we need to work with celebrities, superstars who actually have that kind of an audience. So it is definitely partly conscious, and a lot of my friends, Ricky, all of these people have been, in fact, Dr. Puneet Rajkumar, have been so keen on working on these projects themselves. So definitely it's a conscious kind of initiative to put wildlife and conservation out of its comfort zone. I keep saying that unless we have a song and a dance and some masala, we can't now say conservation and wildlife, because people have a lot going on in their lives and they have too much choice on television. So unless we make this extremely, extremely enticing for all audiences. See, I have a very simple question that I ask myself. In the last couple of years, or in the last 1 year, which Indian film has been released that you can take your kids to or your parents to? And usually the answer is a Disney film. And we keep saying, why can't we have our own Disney? We have all the wildlife. We are in the top when it comes to conservation and biodiversity. In fact, where we are sitting in Karnataka is a place which has the highest number of elephants and tigers anywhere in the world. I mean, we have to think about these things. These are really big animals. But not many people know this. In fact, I have to tell you this, a funny incident. When we did this film and we sent out a trailer to some of our press friends, one of my friends from the press called and said, was it shot in South America? I said, no, this is in Karnataka. So it means that there is a gap, and that gap needs to be filled. And that we will have to do through this.
I like this concept of masala wildlife filmmaker. Now, wildlife filmmaking and photography, both also they get criticized for this intrusion into wildlife. Because you go into there, you actually intrude into their space to film them. So do you face any kind of ethical dilemma? Because at times what happens is that for a beautiful shot or a film, you may have to do certain things which may not be in sync with nature. Have you faced that kind of dilemma? And when you have to choose between getting a perfect shot or being honest with nature, what do you choose? How do you choose? How do you make those decisions?
See, this specifically applies to natural history filmmaking, which is shooting the behavior of animals. Actually, I've moved quite away from shooting animal behavior a lot because it's been shot quite a bit, especially by BBC and the Disneys of the world. And I think our audience needs to connect with animals through people. So storytelling is a very key aspect. In fact, I urge a lot of my filmmaker friends that, when we make a film like Wild Karnataka, we spent about 4 years in the jungles, right? Now, 4 years is a really long time. So in terms of the return on investment, so to speak, you usually produce a 52-minute film, so that's not good enough. So I think we have consciously always made sure that we are outside the periphery of what the animal thinks is its home and its safety, because the first thing is you won't even get a shot if it's disturbed, right? And second thing is, for that one shot that you want to get something, to go and intrude into an animal space is something that I don't believe is worth it. You can get the same amount of audience attention by doing something else. Maybe you can put in a song and then people will appreciate it more. So I think the focus from getting these crystal clear images of animals, hunting, eating, I think that era is past. Now the era has to be of storytelling. How do we tell much better stories that connect with audience at an emotional level? If I ask so many of you today, which is a film you remember from your childhood of wildlife, somebody might say a Jungle Book. And how did Jungle Book come into being? Because we could now anthropomorphize animals and say there is a Baloo, there is a Kaa, there is a Sher Khan. And even today, after Kipling wrote this book, decades later, we are still talking about it, which means he didn't go into the forest and put cameras and things like that. But I can't think of a natural history film where they got this greatest shot on the planet and we still remember it. So I think we as an audience connect with emotions and connect with stories.
Okay. Now, technology has come as a big part. I can see use of lots of technology, and it's being used in storytelling in other ways also. So, how are you using technology, emerging technologies in your storytelling? Because you have given a very different concept, blending technology, storytelling with wildlife filmmaking, making it a masala.
See, of course, now everyone's got access to drones, remote cameras. The human effort has reduced considerably, and it kind of goes back to my earlier point, right? We had to struggle a lot to get that one shot earlier. Now we have a lens that goes from 50 millimeters to 1,000 millimeters, which is quite a huge of a range. Now we have drones that go 7 kilometers, 6 kilometers. They have 8x zoom, 10x zoom, and all of these things. But what that does is it enables us to not think so much about the shots, because the shots are a given. You will get it. You start thinking more about the story now. So what it means is it frees up a lot of your effort and time that you can actually focus. Now, if I want to tell a story of a man-animal interaction, maybe in Hassan or Coorg, what is my audience? Who are the people watching it? Will they first connect to the story? So I can put a lot of effort there. So technology, I feel, is like I say, right? A great pen does not make a Shakespeare, and a great camera does not make a great film. So I think technology is an enabler, and we just have to use it as enablers, because I see now all the films start with hundreds of drone shots, and already people are saturated with drone shots, so they don't want to watch it. So technology should be used in its place, in its relevance, and in its context for it to make the right dent.
Indian wildlife photography or filmmaking, it has been by and large, means I'm not saying all the films are on elephants and tigers, but it has been by and large like that. Even wildlife tourism is all about tiger spotting and at times elephant spotting. How do we move from only tiger and elephant to other animals? Because India has loads of them.
Actually, it's a very interesting question. One of our friends and forest officers is here, and a couple of years ago he said, we want to make a film on a tiger reserve. It used to be called Dandeli Anshi Tiger Reserve, and I really scratched my head as to how will I make a film on a place called Dandeli Anshi Tiger Reserve. And then we figured out the lifeline of that whole forest was the Kali River. So we said, let's make a film on the river. And that film did way better than our previous films, which was on natural history. And of course, the river is an inanimate kind of a subject. And the film had so much impact that eventually the Tiger Reserve got renamed to Kali Tiger Reserve. It was one of the first times in history that's happened something like this.
That's really interesting.
And now the focus obviously is on the river now, because the moment it's connected to the Tiger Reserve, we all know that the river is the sacrosanct resource. And I'm very surprised that I actually thought the film won't do well. But people were really, really enjoying that film because there was an old 100-year-old grandmother who was journeying to the source of the river. So I think people now don't want to watch tigers and elephants anymore. I think they've watched enough tigers and elephants. We've made films on frogs that have done well, so...
I had many more questions, but time is up. We are left with very little time. So that brings us to the end of this conversation. It was wonderful having you here. Thank you for speaking to India today.
Thank you, Kaushik. Thank you, everyone.